Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the latest in travel podcast by Guestcentric. I'm very excited to have with me Michael McCartan, who is the Vice President of in Europe at IDeaS Revenue Management Solutions. So thank you, Michael, for joining us. It's really great to have you.
Thank you, Melissa. No, really good to be here.
Great. And so I gave a brief sort of introduction on your area of expertise. Obviously, you're very knowledgeable in all things revenue management and kind of an evangelist, a self-proclaimed evangelist in that regard. But would you mind just for anyone who's watching this and might not know, giving like a background of what it is that you do, what you've been up to in terms of our industry and like in travel and hospitality and so on?
Yeah, so, how far back do we go? I've been in hotel technology for 20-something years. Really started in the distribution world back in the days when the online travel agents were becoming a thing, so a long, long time ago, and they were trying to find inventory to book or make available real time to the new online traveler. And so I was involved in working very closely with hotel companies and connecting them to online travel agents. And then over the next 20 odd years, sort of shifted from distribution to more revenue management. Probably been involved in revenue management technology for 10 years or so now. And as you said, I'm at IDeaS, responsible for new business in the EMEA region.
Great. And a question that we like to usually ask our guests, it's quite a nice like icebreaker, I would say. Because like you had extensive experience in hospitality. Was this like an industry, if you go back to the very beginning, was this an industry that you always envisioned yourself like being a part of? Like what was your road or your journey if you were into hospitality? What was that like all the way up until today?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because it absolutely wasn't something that I had on my radar. I still suffer from imposter syndrome, I'd say, because I'm not a hotelier and never worked in a hotel. I actually started my life out as a civil engineer on construction sites. I was actually, not even traditional construction sites. I was involved in remedial water supplies for. I'm South African, and it was in.
Oh, you're South African. Sorry to
Yes,
interrupt, but I lived many years in South Africa, like
fantastic.
from 2000 until 2016. My family moved over there back just before the Y2K.
Yeah,
And we actually
okay.
we passed the new year into 2000 like in South Africa. That was our first like New Year's Eve there. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Amazing. No, absolutely. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Yeah,
But
for
no,
sure.
so I was involved in emergency water supply projects in remote areas of South Africa. So did that for 7 or 8 years, and I went backpacking. I sort of quit my job as a civil engineer. I went backpacking, went to South America, spent a year in South America, and on my return, I thought, well, I could continue. Well, I could go back to a real job, or I could continue traveling. And my grandparents were British, so I was allowed to come and work in the UK on what was called an ancestry visa, and I decided to do that. And I worked for a software company selling structural analysis software, and did that for 2 years. And then I realized I'd always had this sort of in the pit of my stomach that I wasn't a very good engineer and I needed to do a career change. And my brother-in-law worked for a hotel company called UTEL, which no longer exists, but was they were looking for people to connect the hotel inventory to the online travel agents, so project management type work. And I fudged my way into that, and that was my introduction. So my first job in hotel technology was with Pegasus Solutions, and then I did actually do a little stint with UTEL. So I actually have worked for a hotel company, but never in operations. Always on the technical side of things.
Great. cool. Well, we have two things in common. One being that, hospitality and travel wasn't really like, I guess, the initial industry that certainly wasn't the initial industry I envisioned for myself. But then also, yeah, that South African background. Yeah, cool. And something that's kind of interesting, I think, like with your extensive experience and background, like in hotel technology, what has stood out to you in terms of like the evolution? Like what would you say is like the biggest highlight in terms of hotel technology evolution? Like what has stood out to you over these years from when you first got into the industry until today?
Yeah, I would say, and it's not so much from my personal experience working in hotel technology, but more from as being a hotel guest. I think it's the frictionless journey. It's not perfect by any means. We all know that there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of personalization and removing friction points and just making technology available when it needs to be available and without being intrusive. But if you cast your mind back 20 years, and the whole check-in process, being able to book online, huge advances in terms of making the guest journey far more intuitive and frictionless. I think that's probably the biggest change. I think if you brought someone, that hadn't experienced that from that was booking hotels 30 years ago to where they are now, it would feel like magic to them, even though we're in the thick of it and feel, we understand the pain and the frustration of guests and how much more we can do. I think on reflection, it's still a massive leap forward.
Yeah, definitely. Like more efficient and stuff as well in terms of that whole booking journey. I can imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, if you compare it to the airlines, they've done a much better job at making it more frictionless. They seem to be more present when you need the assistance. The digital tools are there to support you. But hotels are much more complex, and there are many more things that have to be considered. It's not just about checking in and downloading a boarding pass. There's certainly a lot more that needs to happen from a guest perspective, but still from a hotel perspective. But it's still much better than it was. Just being able to order room service through an app or scan a QR code and things like that, not have to talk to anyone. It makes a big improvement.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of, so obviously in line with this like evolution of technology, as things become more available or accessible and easier to do in terms of, you mentioned like the frictionless customer journey, the guest demands change with that as well. And so sort of drawing on your expertise in revenue management, I think like looking at the evolution of that function, I think in the past, it's been a lot of focus on like historical data or like guest data to sort of anticipate the demand patterns, as it were. And then now there's kind of the shift of like more real-time data rather than looking back. But you've written before, like in, I don't know, a couple of articles that I've read, sort of like about anticipating that future demand, and especially with the, I think COVID is like a good example of that, with a lot of things that were changing just all the time, and it was very uncertain conditions. But what would you say in terms of getting that, like anticipating that future demand? What would be your advice to hotels nowadays to do that, to gather that data and to anticipate what the demands are from the consumers?
Yeah, at the risk of a selfless plug, I would say that obviously a revenue management solution is going to be able to analyze the available and relevant data sets far more deeply than any human's going to be. The first thing is that you need relevant data. It's not just about throwing tons and tons of data at a system and saying work it out. We spend a lot of time working out what is relevant. As you said, there has been a shift from historical to future, but not every single new data set is provides any valuable insights into forecasting that demand. There are good data sets and there are bad data sets. It's understanding what's relevant. Once you've determined what's relevant, then trying to apply that and come up with an accurate forecast requires machines. I mean, no human is able to um, calculate or analyze the data that in real time is just volumes and volumes of it to really make sense of it. And that's where a revenue management system can really set a new level for a hotel. I think anyone who's trying to forecast manually without the benefit or the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics is going to be on the back foot. So yeah, my advice is really invest in the technology. It's much more accessible than it was, and it's more affordable, and also you get more appropriate. It's not one size fits all anymore. Different hotels can use different solutions. There are solutions that are fit for purpose, and so if a hotel is not using a revenue management system to forecast their demands, then they should really think about doing so.
And just out of sort of a curiosity, in my mind, just also with my sort of limited background on the industry and stuff, was revenue management, is this quite like a new phenomenon, like in terms of, because I know that there's like the role of like revenue managers and stuff at the hotel. Is this something that was just sort of created like in recent years, or was this, going way back to, even the pre-internet, era? Was that something that was quite in situ, and it's just sort of evolved from like being, a team of like department as it were, to, getting those solutions on board to make it more automated? Or how was that evolution?
Yeah, it's been around a lot longer than you think. IDeaS itself, I think, if memory serves me correctly, has been around since 1989. So, a long,
Right,
long
okay.
time. So it's been around. Obviously, the science has become more sophisticated. The accessibility of relevant data has become much more available. But then the discipline, as you said, has also matured. So it's been a journey. I think if there was machine assistance in terms of revenue management capabilities way back then, it evolved from the airlines. The airlines were the first to adopt some sort of what they called yield management. We borrowed a lot from them, but it's evolved since then. But yeah, I think both organizationally, culturally, and technology wise, it's sort of evolved together and grown together, and to a point now, as I say, where it's become much more accessible. Back in those days, it was really the bigger hotel chains that were using technology to support their decision making. Now it's really accessible to any hotel of any size.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And in terms of so looking again sort of at like the guest demands or the consumer demands and anticipating those, what would be your advice to hotels to actually be prepared for something very unexpected? Like, I don't know, you've written before and used this example of like there was a hotel that they had like planned out for like some predefined dates that were booked for like an Ed Sheeran concert, but then at the last minute he added like an extra date, and then they were kind of like, oh, they didn't have, they were kind of caught with their pants down. So like, what would be your recommendations or advice for hotels to kind of be prepared to react if there's like a unexpected wave of demand, as it were, and to really capitalize on that and not lose out on those opportunities for their business?
Yeah, so when I wrote the article, Ed Sheeran was the big thing. Now it's Taylor Swift. It's Swift.
Yeah.
So even that's changed. So no, but the principle's still the same. Obviously, if you trying to understand demand based on what you know of the business and map it out and sort of expect the same trends to follow the same trends, you're going to miss out on opportunities such as Taylor Swift announcing a concert unexpectedly, and demand just surges. Worst case, you caught unawares completely, and you just sell out a really low rate relatively, or you realize it's happening and you go in and change the rate manually, and you at least recover some of the situation, but you still lose out, versus a hotel that's using full automated decision making, that would start detecting those surges in demand really when they start happening, and being able to um, evaluate what the potential is going to be. We use at IDeaS something called a closed loop decision system. So every action has a reaction, and then they constantly feed each other. So when you change a price, that's going to um, either increase or decrease demand. If that price results in more demand coming through, then you know that the demand the perceived demand is strong, and that you can hold that price, even increase that price. And if the pricing was not right, then you wouldn't see the anticipated pickup, and you'd reduce the price. So you have to, if you haven't got a closed loop system, you're sort of shooting down a dark alley, saying, I'm going to try this price, but I don't know what the consequences are going to be, because you're not getting that feedback loop. So if you do have a closed loop system, you can say, okay, I'm seeing the demand. Is that real demand? Let's try this price. If it reacts positively and you start picking up demand rooms, because even though you've changed the price, then it'll try a new price, and will continue to keep changing the prices as long as that demand is there. So in the Taylor Swift example, you would really be able to maximize the revenue opportunity within reason. I mean, we're not advocating that you go and rip off guests or anything like that, but you're getting your fair share at the right market value if you have that closed loop decision system. So it really allows, even, as I said, all hotels to act on a level playing field and get their fair share of the business at the price that the market is willing to pay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just as you were talking, it was something that popped into my mind. So we've done like sort of a quick analysis on our side, on our portfolio of hotels, and there was something that we noticed, which I'm not sure exactly how to frame this question, as I'm kind of thinking out loud here. But we noticed something that was kind of unique in how, like, hotels sort of closer to the check-in date, they seem to lower their ADR to kind of stimulate, I guess, more demand closer. Whereas with the airlines, it's kind of the opposite effect. So it's like, the closer you get to the flight date or the check-in date, the prices are sky high. And so I'm not sure, this is kind of more of like an observation, but I wondered what your thoughts are on that. Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that's happening? Is it, something that we would say is good practice? What should hotels consider if they're doing this?
Yeah, I mean, best practice would be certainly not to do that. Ideally, what you want to do is build your rate up, and avoid dropping it at the last minute and sort of triggering cancel rebooks, because that's the consequence. The negative consequence of doing that means that the consumer gets educated that this is likely to happen, so they'll book a hotel, a fully flexible rate, just to secure the hotel, and then wait a couple of days before arrival and say, what else is out there? Maybe I can get a better hotel at a cheaper rate if this behavior exists, and that they will do that, obviously. So no, that certainly shouldn't be the case. If that is the case, I would suspect that a lot of hotels in that market are not using automated decision-making revenue management systems, and they are putting the prices high based on perceived demand. That demand doesn't materialize, and then they're forced to drop their price just to get some occupancy. So an automated revenue management system or decision-making system would balance that and say, okay, this is the likely demand, and constantly evaluate whether they're getting the pickup, based on that demand. So say if I push this price out, I should see another 10 rooms pick up in the next 48, 36 hours. If I'm not seeing that, then I need to lower it. And so the price has been adjusted in advance of that sort of final, the active booking window, shall we say.
But could a way to mitigate that would be to make the last minute rates like non-refundable, or not really?
Sorry, say that again?
Could a way to mitigate, like, let's say the cancellations and stuff, would a way to mitigate that be like to sort of make the rates non-refundable, or how would that impact the guests' demand, like on your perspective?
Yeah, so I think hotels should have a strategy of non-refundable rates versus fully flexible rates. And how it would work is that the fully flexible rates, sort of the advanced purchase rate, would be discounted off the fully flexed rate to encourage early booking. So if you or I know that we're going to be in a certain place at a certain time, and the chances of us not traveling are quite low, then obviously we would book the advanced purchase at that discounted rate. And then anyone who's may or may not book is sort of speculating, they would book the fully flexible. So you do definitely want to get a sort of base of business prepaid if you can. What a revenue management system will do is also flex that discount. So you might say my fully flexible rate is 15% off my best available rate. But if the system can see that you're going to sell out on a particular day, obviously you don't want to offer that 15% discount all the way up to arrival, or even a week before arrival, if you know that you're going to sell out. So then the system will automatically shrink the discount to say, I still want to encourage prepaid book business, but only at a 5% rather than a 15% discount. So it will constantly evaluate and measure whether the demand versus the pricing that you should be selling at. So you're not diluting revenue, basically.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And sort of, so obviously, like a way, like for hotels to kind of, we talk a lot about like distribution and online distribution, and hotels sort of having, I don't know, like a more stronger direct share in terms of, helping their business profitability and so on. So in your perspective, like what are some strategies that hotels can and should implement to incentivize direct bookings with their prices? What would be some of your recommendations on that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you need to give the guest a reason to book direct. And it's not just about price. You need, and offering a cheaper price on your own channels has consequences, as you will know with the OTAs. So that is one strategy. But beyond just offering a price reduction, you need to give them a reason to book direct, whether it's in the way that you communicate with the guest, whether it's in terms of the value additions that you can offer to the guest by booking direct. So there are various tactics that you can offer, and probably at Guest-Centric you're much more familiar with what those are. But at the end of the day, a consumer will book direct if they feel that they're going to get something extra meaningful from having that direct relationship, and you need to be clear to the prospective guests that if they book direct, these are the things that they will be getting.
And I guess it feeds into that demand as well for like more personalized experiences and having more of that direct relationship with the guests and kind of understanding their individual preferences.
Yeah, that's this is where the revenue management space is moving towards, is being able to provide more personalized experience by using what we know about the guests to offer something that is unique, and also for example, if I've got a soft period in my hotel, and I need to fill it, the revenue management system can't just be about offering a price. It's about weaving into saying, these are the types of guests that are booking, even though it's a lean period. These are the types of guests that are booking. So how do we attract more of them? What are the characteristics of these guests? What are they coming from a particular source market, or are there a particular segment of guests that is booking. So how do I go and find more of that? A revenue management system can't go and promote to those segments. That's where you have to work with the CRM, the marketing system, to understand, okay, the revenue management system can work out what the right price is, but how do you communicate that right price to the right people? And that's where the interface between marketing and revenue management is getting very close. And call it marketing revenue management, if you like, because if you can combine that information, you can target the right guests, get a much higher conversion rate, and not waste marketing effort by sort of shooting down a blind alley and just trying to seeing what sticks. You can be much more targeted in the channels that you're communicating with them, but also in what you're offering them, because maybe those segments of guests that are booking like certain things. So then you can put out a promotion that says, okay, I know you're booking. I know the German source market is strong at the moment for this particular segment. I want more of those guests. I know that the German market wants these sorts of things. They appreciate having breakfast included. So let me include that and create a package that's going to resonate with them and improve the conversion rates.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think also important to communicate that value, I guess, because I mean, as a consumer myself, like, in some cases I'm willing to pay more if it's the offer that I want. So it's not even all about, as you say, it's not all about the price. It's it's about the value.
Yeah, and it could be as little as just feeling that the hotel is engaging with you in a meaningful way. The way that they correspond with you pre and post, or pre-booking, or even before you've booked. So yeah, it's certainly not about price. The package, the offer is going to help, of course, but the way that you communicate that offer is also going to be important.
And do you have any examples to share, like something that you've experienced, like, I don't know, in hotels that you've stayed at recently, or like clients that you work with? Is there anything like practical examples that stand out to you on hotels that do this really well, like communicating that value of booking direct?
Yeah, I think for example, knowing when you're arriving, offering a transfer. I was in Dubai recently, and that was a surprise, saying that would you like a pickup from the airport? It seems quite simple, but it's appreciated, and I think just them understanding and knowing that they're understanding your potential needs when you arrive. Definitely improves the relationship that you have with the hotel, and feels like you're a bit more invested in making it a longer term relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's the little things that count. It seems very simple, but yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah,
As,
I mean, how many, we laugh about this, but it still happens when you check into a hotel and they say, have you stayed here before? And that's the biggest downer for any guest. And just getting that right is important. And maybe that's less likely to happen if it's not booked through a third party. It
yeah.
shouldn't happen anyway, but it's you can reduce that happening if I book directly, and just make sure that you deliver on the promise.
Yeah, definitely. We can actually maybe get into, because I know personalization is coming up a bit on this, and I'm curious to know your thoughts about, because we obviously know the big hotels, they have the loyalty programs and things like that. But I'm curious to get your perspectives on like sort of independent hotels and like smaller groups like implementing this. But we'll get into that in a moment.
Sure.
But following sort of what we kind of had a look back on the industry and technology in this space and how it's evolved, but sort of looking to the future and looking at the current technology trends that we have today and how they're evolving for the consumers and for hotels. What's the one prediction that you have for the future of our industry that might surprise our listeners, and why?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll surprise the listeners, but I definitely think that we are going to hotels obviously consider themselves a people business. But the irony for me is that actually I think we're going to improve guest experience by investing in technology and increasing the presence of technology and probably have fewer people working in hotel operations. So yeah, my prediction is that the people that will be there there'll be fewer of them, but they'll provide an enhanced service because technology will be there to support those people in the background, really help them anticipate guest needs at the moment that they need assistance. And when they don't need human intervention, the technology will take care of their needs and wants in a sort of seamless, automated way. So yeah, for me, that's the ironic prediction, if you like, is that as a people business, we're going to rely on fewer people, but the people that are on working in the industry are going to be much more attentive than they are now because they're not going to be doing meaningful, redundant, repetitive jobs. They really will be guest focused and be present when the guest needs them.
Yeah. Um, so like this is kind of an interesting one because I know like we have a lot of like technology available today and but for me when something, you know, because there's still things that need to be ironed out, nothing is perfect yet. So there is like those moments, I guess, in the journey as a consumer that I do need that sort of human intervention, as it were, like someone just on the other side of the phone that I can call and just be like, okay, I have this very nuanced problem. Can you please help to solve it? Do you think there will still be room for that kind of, you know, more customer facing, or will the technology just get like perfect that, you know, you don't need that anymore? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think there will still be the requirement for people. So I think AI, in this example, a chatbot will probably service 90% of all inquiries because a lot of them will be the same. I don't want to have to speak to a human because I want to know the Wi-Fi password. That
Right.
should be available to me at my convenience when I want it without feeling like I'm having to intrude or engage with someone. So but when I have a difficult problem, a more complex problem, or more personal problem, then I want a human to be able to pick that up. And I think the transition between, or the handover between AI and humans is really going to be important. It's got to feel like a natural transition, um, so that I don't feel I'm just falling between two stools as a guest. The AI engagement is positive until it's not working for me, and then the human can step in seamlessly to pick up the conversation. So I feel like they've really understood my business in that respect, or
Yeah.
my needs, my requirements.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with you. Like, yeah, I'm more of a DIY. So if I can do as much as possible myself without having to spend time calling, that's, you know, all good.
Yeah,
But yeah, if there's that hiccup, then it's good to have that person on the other end of
yeah,
the line.
and I think I saw a statistic, something like 60 or 70% of humans or guests are happy to engage with AI. So that trend is going to grow. I think you and I are not unique. I think there are certain things where we just, you know, ordering room service. I don't have to want, phone room service. I just want to be able to say, show me the menu, select what I want, push click of a button and deliver it to me. And I don't even doesn't even need to be delivered by a human. I don't care if a robot delivers it to my room. In fact, it could save some embarrassing, awkward situations where you open the front door. You know the story. But so in that respect, I think technology is great. It's delivering what you want in a way that's convenient to you. But for sure, when it becomes a more personal, unusual situation, then you want someone who's empathetic, that can really understand, can sit down with you, work through the problem with you in a personal way. And I think that would be valued.
I totally agree. And on this topic of AI, I think it's a good segue to kind of, and also keeping on the trends that we're looking at, that will continue to evolve in our industry. In your opinion, like, how do you expect AI technology to continue impacting revenue management as a function in the coming years? And what should hotels consider going forward to leverage this trend and to leverage AI as it continues to evolve? Like, what would be, I guess, to make it really simple, like, what would be the first 1 to 3 steps that hotels should consider in sort of being a part of that evolution?
Yeah, so already at the sort of the foundation of revenue management has always had an element of AI already. So AI obviously has become much more front of mind because of generative AI, the chat GBT stuff, where it's generating content based on through artificial intelligence. But if you look at the core of predictive analytics, there's machine learning, looking at historical patterns and sort of using the past to replicate the future. We chatted about that. That's still AI, artificial intelligence to an extent. Even now, within our forecasting models, we've got over 100 forecasting models that we will use in our application, and the AI is determining which is the most appropriate model to use for a particular day, for a particular room type. So, not every hotel is the same. Not every hotel demand every day for every hotel is the same. So, using machine learning and intelligence to understand which model to use is AI as well, and that exists. And we also touched on data. So the analytics now will say which is the most appropriate information to use. Again, not all data is equal on every single day. So you need to, on one particular day, your competitive set pricing might have more impact on your demand than your current pickup, which is another data set that we're using, or whatever the case may be. So there are a variety of data sets, and the models the AI will start saying, on this particular day for this particular room type, this is the most important information to use to model and determine the price. So that's happening already, and again, that's very difficult for humans to replicate. There's just too much information to consume and analyze to come to those decisions. Moving beyond that, I think we're going to get to a situation now where it will be more generative, where the revenue manager or the commercial leader will be able to interact with the revenue management system in a much more one sort of person-to-person type way, saying, hey Google, hey revenue manager, tell me my forecast for today. What are the days that I should be paying more attention to, and getting sort of human responses back. So all of that information is there already, but it's just been communicated through reports and tables and things like that, alerts. Whereas I think the future of revenue management is going to be much more interactive, shall we say, where you have a sort of a digital assistant helping you, saying, hey, Melissa, I think you need to look at Tuesday, the 31st of May, because something unusual is happening there, or whatever the case may be.
So kind of like an Alexa, but for revenue management.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, we've actually developed that with Alexa and Google already. The adoption has been low because it's not as sophisticated as it needs to be, but it's sort of, we're on a path to developing that further, and become much more generative in the sense that it can start telling you why it's doing certain things, where you should pay attention. You can start interrogating it more in a conversational way.
And you said the adoption's low. That seems interesting I don't know, maybe it's a personal preference thing, but like for me, I really like, I prefer voice commands and things like that. Like even sending a message on WhatsApp, I'll use the voice note instead of like typing this long, message on stuff. But you said it's what was the reason for that again?
I don't know, truthfully. I suspect that it's if I equate it to maybe like a search for hotels, we still like lists. I want to go to New York on these dates. La 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 la. Show me all of the hotels within this price range, and I will then filter and find the appropriate one. I don't think we're quite, as consumers, quite in a place yet where you just say, "Tell me the most suitable hotel within these parameters." We still want to sense check the decisions, shall we say? And maybe that's the case. Maybe we, the revenue managers, but also just humans in general, we still want to see what's going on rather than just hear it from in a sort of a single word answer saying this is what's happening.
And in your opinion, like how can AI and like automation optimize like the revenue management function? But like, I guess sort of, what would, let's say you're a hotel and you're going to have like a revenue management team and they're going to work with these systems. Like what would be a way to kind of make the system work cohesively with the department itself on like the human resources level?
Yeah, couple of things there. At the heart of a revenue management system is trust. You know, these are key decisions that can have a big impact on the business performance of a hotel. So if the users don't trust the system, they don't trust the forecast, they don't trust the pricing decisions, they don't trust the restrictions, the overbooking decisions, those sorts of things, then they're going to interfere a lot with the system. So for us, building up that trust is core to what we do, key to what we do. And the best use case for us is a user that never overrides, never challenges the decisions, because we know that they are comfortable with what's been recommended. And when you get to that point, you're running in a much more automated environment, and your feedback loop that I mentioned earlier becomes much more positive because it's not polluted with outside interference, shall we say. So establishing that from a pure revenue management perspective is a vital step to greater, more automation. When you start weaving in, there are three legs. There's the time, the space, and the traveler. So the time element, that's sort of the core revenue management practices that we've got today. What is the right price for this product in next day, the day after that, etc. That's the time element. Then beyond that is the space. So it's not just about rooms, it's about meeting space, it's about other services in the hotels, and getting a full picture and being able to revenue manage all of that and sort of balance the rooms and the other space, what's in to optimize that. That's another key element on the sort of revenue management journey. And then the third element is the guest, understanding the guest needs and being able to appropriately price based on that the traveler's needs. What's the definition of revenue management? The right price, right time, right person. And when you sort of include the guest data, you get there. So the three legs of revenue management that we're trying to get to. We do the rooms really well. The space and the traveler elements less so, but that's really where the future of revenue management and what I'll call total profitability management.
So in an ideal world, it would be all of those things connected and automated and managed by like a team that, users that understand and can work well with those systems.
Yeah, exactly. So they set the strategy. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is how we want to position our hotel, our product. These are the sorts of guests that we're targeting, trying to attract. And then the system, and that's not just revenue management, that's marketing, that's distribution, that's all, the whole commercial function in the hotel can then validate their strategy through automation. So, do I take this group? Are they more profitable than this high value transient business that I'm getting, but only for a certain day? they're going to book meeting space, but they're not going to stay in the restaurant, versus this group that is going to stay longer but spend more in the restaurant and the spa. So the decisions become very, very complex when you start folding in all of these other data sets around space, time, and people. And just managing uh, the room side of things is complex and difficult for humans to do when you consider the whole hotel space and
Yeah.
the kids staying in there. It really is. It can only be done by um, science.
Yeah. So we kind of, I guess you answered a bit the question that I was going to, that I was mulling over in my head to ask you. But just, I guess, putting it in really practical terms, like almost like a story, like for in layman terms for people to understand. What is like one or two examples on how automation can actually contribute to like um, more of a dynamic pricing strategy, but that adapts to the real-time market conditions, sort of feeding back into like sort of the unexpected scenarios? What would be like, let's say I'm a hotelier and you need to convince me like, okay, this is how this can respond to these conditions or help you react to this. Like, what would be your
Yeah.
story on that?
So I would say, if you can sort of imagine Tetris, the game Tetris, where you've got the big horizontal bars coming down, you've got just one little squares coming down, and you've got to try and balance the different shapes to make sure that you're filling up every row without many gaps. Now, in a revenue management um, situation, you've got one night stays, little square blocks. You've got long 4 night length of stays, long blocks, and you've got everything in between. Um, as a human, you've sort of got to anticipate how many 1 night stays am I going to get versus how many long night stays am I going to get. Now, you could see high demand for a Tuesday night, and you're filling up really fast, and you say, okay, I want to slow that down, slow that demand down, and you do that by raising the price. You say, okay, now I'm get that those 1 night stays are paying a premium, but they're still coming. At some point, you're going to have to say, well, if I fill out on that Tuesday night, I'm blocking a potential 4 night length of stay. Or so, but I'm not seeing any demand for 4 night length of stay. But I want to keep some headroom there in case I do. So you would put a restriction on there. What a revenue management system would do is calculate the demand for 4 nights, calculate the demand for 1 night, and it does the Tetris for you. So you don't end up with a situation where you're booking 1 night to a point and then only allowing a couple of longer length of stays, staying through that night. It will say, hold off booking the 1 night stays. Put a restriction on early because we can see the anticipated demand for 4 nights. It's not showing on your books yet. You might, as a seasoned revenue manager, say this doesn't feel right because I haven't none of those 4 night stays have materialized. But if the analytics is saying that 4 night length of stay business is coming, hold off, put a restriction on, fill up with your 4 night length of stays, and then if those 4 night length of stays start slowing down, then open up for the 1 night length of stays. Then you get a much more balanced distribution of your stays, and our analytics will show that you make a lot more money that way. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a practical example of how machines can analyze and anticipate and forecast, predict future demand much better than humans can, even if you know your market and your hotel really well.
Yeah, and I guess we're limited as humans. There's a bit of like, you can always tell with like the past and stuff, but like it might, be a bit of guesswork involved, and I guess having that
Yeah, it
that
is
science,
definitely,
yeah,
and it's gut feel, and even if you get it right on one day, you can't focus on all 365 days into the future. So you might be able to get it right some of the time, but the machine is looking at all of these scenarios all of the time, and playing Tetris on every single day of the week for the next 365 days, or longer, depending on the type of hotel you are. So yeah, the outcomes are just going to be more beneficial ultimately.
Yeah. And so like, let's say, so for hotels that don't use like these systems currently, but they, I don't know, what would be sort of like the way that, um, let's say they want to kind of, there's some departments that are like, okay, we should invest in this system. They need to convince, you know, some stakeholders like on why they should do it. What would be sort of the benefits that could be communicated around, like, I guess, the operational efficiency of using more automated solutions for these hotels, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think all hotels are struggling with resources now. I think that's, labor shortages have definitely impacted our industry, and continue to impact them. So doing more with less is, I don't think it's a choice anymore. I think hotels really do need to, and I'm not just talking revenue management, I'm talking all technology. Hotels really do need to invest in technology and streamline operations, become more efficient, and do more with less. And revenue management is no different. In fact, I think it's an opportunity for hotels that haven't used or haven't invested in revenue management, as a discipline within their hotels, to actually use technology to close the gap between hotels that have more of a revenue management culture. Because as long as you are able to define your strategy and put that strategy into a revenue management system, you can then start automating the outcomes, and that will put you in a much stronger position, and allow you to compete more effectively with some of the bigger brands or hotels that have been using revenue management technology for a long time. So I feel it levels the playing field, without the requisite investment in the skills that would otherwise make it a very costly investment.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely, yeah, it's we get a lot of things done quicker with technology, even on the day-to-day basis. So definitely agree with that sentiment. Kind of, so kind of going back to something we touched on a bit earlier in regards to, I guess, personalization, and also, you know, we spoke about direct incentives in terms of price, but then also the full like offer. So sort of moving into that trend of personalization, in your opinion, like what, so we spoke about combining, you know, the revenue management with the CRM and that, but like what would be some practical ways, in your opinion, that hotels can really effectively analyze that data from the CRM, um, and like create a personalized like pricing model for the guests um, that they've had come to the hotel?
Yeah, in the future, I think and this is an area that we're very focused on, is automating that in the exchange of data between the CRM and the revenue management system. So those two systems start working in harmony together. So revenue management system saying, this is a lean period, feeding that into the marketing system saying, um, please, I need some help creating demand for this period. The marketing system saying, I can see from the profile of guests that are booking, this is who we should market to. This is the sort of, what they like and dislike. So, as I said, sort of creating a more meaningful package, distributing that out. The revenue management system would see the increase in demand and can say, yeah, this marketing campaign is working, or it's not. You need to adjust. So that feedback loop will start happening and become automated. In the interim, what obviously needs to happen is that the marketing and the revenue teams need to collaborate,
Align. Yeah.
align. There are horror stories of back in the day when, the marketing team would do a campaign, spend lots of marketing dollars, driving demand for a period where the hotel was already full. And the revenue manager team would go, "What on earth are you doing? You've just wasted all that budget filling the hotel that's already full, and probably at a discounted rate." So, or maybe not full, but the forecast that we were going to sell out. So now you've just taken a busy day and diluted it with a promotion. That didn't help us. You spent dollars, and our ADR is lower. So, just communicating, um, with improving communication, but between the two groups is obviously what needs to happen. Sitting down, saying, this is where I need your assistance. What's going to be appropriate, defining what that looks like, and then, seeing the results, evaluating the results, and feeding the uptake back into the marketing system so the campaign can be refined or improved or changed.
And do you think that collaboration has gotten better in recent years? Because you sort of went back in the day, and then do you reckon that's gotten? Because I don't know, even like in my experience with marketing, I know certainly like first getting into this space, this was something that it's like, sales and marketing need to talk to each other more, because there's like, there was some, things that needed to be aligned, and, like to avoid, throwing mud on the wall and hoping that it sticks in that
exactly.
regard. But do you reckon it's gotten better with I don't know, just based on your experience working with hotels, has that collaboration gotten tighter, or is that, still something that hotels need to work on?
There's probably still work that needs to happen, but in general, I would say that it's vastly better than it was. What you definitely see now, and this is not recent, this is a trend that's probably happened over the last 5 to 10 years, is that you have commercial teams with a single commercial leader responsible for sales, marketing, and revenue management. So the decisions are being made centrally and all sort of driving the thin edge of the wedge, versus back in the day when marketing and sales and revenue were three distinct separate departments with separate leaders, and probably with conflicting KPIs. So the way that they were measured and incentivized was different, and created a lot of pull and push between the groups. So I think at least in sort of larger organizations, that alignment is happening. Probably smaller independent hotels, definitely something to consider if it's not already happening.
And sort of looking at, so I think we spoke about this a bit before as well, but how, in your opinion, would you say that, I don't know, what would be some specific examples on how hotels can analyze, I guess, the guest behavior to sort of create those personalized offers, but also sort of shape that into their pricing models as well? What would be some ways? So obviously the CRM is kind of the big, the obvious source, I guess, of data, but are there other ways that are more, I don't know, like from the website, what would be some ways that they could get that data from their guests, anticipate those demand patterns, and then feed that into their pricing strategies?
Yeah, obviously the CRM is the key, and being able to understand the trends within that guest data, so capturing more guest data. That's probably something that hotels don't do particularly well, is really capturing guest intent and guest requirements, and having that available in a clean and usable way. You probably know more about that than me, but that's good data is vital. That's the oxygen, and if you haven't, just having bad data or inconsistent data is not really going to help. So definitely good clean data, and capturing that good clean data is a good place to start. But then you can also look at things like look to books, who's looking but not booking, understanding that demand data more, seeing if it's relevant. That's going to help. The more that you can understand the people that are looking but not booking and their behavior, the more you can understand or try and convert more of those guests. So why didn't they book? Almost why didn't they book is more important why they did book, because there's probably, the number of people that are booking is the tip of the iceberg. So understanding the reasons people aren't booking is very important. And we're starting to use more of that demand data, particularly off the hotel's own websites, to understand the relevancy of that information and seeing how we can bring it into our forecasts.
And what are some ways to get the answer to that question, like on a very specific level? And I guess that's the $1 million question.
Yes, it's not
Why are
something we
people
do.
not booking?
But there are tools out there. There are tools that sort of look at demand data and can analyze it and understand behaviors and patterns in that. So yes, not an area of expertise of mine, but certainly there are people that are looking into that and providing reports and combining flight data with shopping data and a variety of different sources of information to try and understand more about that demand.
And in your opinion, like, what are some ways that hotels can effectively, I guess, measure the ROI of sort of getting this data, creating these pricing strategies, and then, feeding back like, okay, these are the results of the steps we've taken and the systems that we're using. What would be, in your opinion, some steps for hoteliers, revenue managers specifically, and the marketing departments as well to do this?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that's been debated hotly within revenue management circles or hotel circles, right now. I mean, it's what is the right measure? We've sort of relied on RevPAR and ADR and as the building blocks, the cornerstones for measuring hotel performance. But the reality is they are very room centric, very limiting in if you're starting to consider space and guests, which were the other two dimensions that I spoke about. So do we start looking at revenue per guest? Do we start looking at revenue per square meter? The answer is probably yes, we should. Those are far better measures of the hotel's overall performance. Am I utilizing every square meter effectively and efficiently, even if it means that my hotel rooms are not generating as much revenue, but overall I'm generating more revenue? Or revenue per guest, am I getting the most out of our guests? Do I turn away certain travelers that might book with me more, stay more nights with me, but spend less in the restaurants, in the bar, in the spa, etc. Because I want to attract more of those guests that give me a greater share of their wallet than the guests that are just using me for a place to sleep. So not easy, because you need much more information. You need clean, good data. You need a sufficient volume of data to be able to use those metrics in a meaningful way. But I think if we are able to do that, the hotel owners will be much happier, because they'll be seeing their assets work much harder for them.
And I guess in a way, there's that data of like, how the hotel is being used, the rooms and so on, but then like not only the revenue coming in, but that versus the costs, the operational costs as well. Like, is that something that currently is being like, you can sort of have like a view of the costs versus the revenue that's coming in? Is that something?
Yeah, it's a great question, and yes, the answer is yes. And we will consider the costs of a room. So again, it goes down to getting the information. So your cost of distribution. So which channels should I be selling to at what price? That's one aspect of that. But also, do I take a 7-night length of stay at a lower daily rate, but they're only having their room changed twice, so the cost of cleaning is much lower than 7 guests at a higher rate. So factoring that in, we can take that into consideration, and we can optimize based on profitability rather than just top line revenue. The challenge, as I said, is getting the information. All of that cost information is not readily accessible in some cases, but also, can the downstream systems, the distribution systems, actually understand a profitability indicator versus a revenue indicator? So we will, at the moment, we will say, stop selling rates below X price, stop, because they're not you're displacing revenue elsewhere. What we want to start doing is send a revenue number saying it has a profitability index. Stop selling these rates because you're losing you taking more expensive business than not.
Yeah.
So the ecosystem doesn't support that as well as it should. But we're on a path to solving that problem.
Yeah. Well, one step at a time, I
Yeah,
guess.
and a story of our lives. Eh?
Rome wasn't built in a day. But yeah, I mean, it's always fascinating to see the headway that's made with these solutions and systems. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes up in the next coming years. And in terms of getting all that data and putting it together, are there any like I think, you know, especially with AI and stuff in recent, you know, years, there's been this debate about the ethical concerns of the data, of the use. Is that something on the forefront of your mind? Like, if so, why? And what would be some of the, I guess, solutions so that it's not a beast, you know, that spirals out of control?
So we're fortunate from a revenue management standpoint is that we don't need to know the guest information. That's where the sort of the interface with the marketing system is crucial for us. We can still forecast demand without knowing the specifics. You know, the PII information is not necessary for us. We need to know certain things, but not down to that level. And then so we're already protected from that problem. But obviously, the more we start integrating with marketing systems, the more we'll have to bring that into consideration. Yeah, for sure. But I think even then, we probably don't have to know that it's you or me searching on this channel or whatever the case may be, or we can get sent information from the marketing system that already strips out that personal information.
Right. Yeah, be interesting to see how that goes. Especially like, I don't know, in terms of I think, yeah, it's interesting because, you know, guests want personalization, but then there's the privacy concerns as well. So it's like balancing that. It's a bit of a tricky one, but some businesses do it really well, others not so much. But I guess we'll see in the coming times. All right, great. Well, we've actually come to the end of our time, but before we go, I just wanted to ask one final question. If like looking into the coming months and you know, the coming years, what would you say you're looking forward to the most for our industry, and why?
I think it's something we touched on earlier. In my head, I have this seamless guest journey where I book a hotel and the hotel knows who I am and anticipates my needs, and all of those friction points along the way, even though it's much better than it was, they need to be removed. And I would like to be able to, from the moment I probably even before I book a hotel, to when I have checked out and left, to not have to have any trivial, meaningless interactions with people. That all of my needs are attended to when I need them. So they're anticipating that I'll need the Wi-Fi code, that they're anticipating that I'll have room service, and I can access those services in a seamless, integrated way that doesn't require me to hunt for some sort of code or pick up the phone or talk to anyone. But when I do need someone, that the interaction that I have with them is genuine, empathetic, interesting, and create a connection. So yeah, I think that would really elevate, not just for sort of a leisure traveler, but for a business traveler as well. Elevate the experience to something that, in my opinion, doesn't exist today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially if there's those, like, I know sometimes, you know, with our journeys and stuff, there's disruptions along the way, and just having that sort of very seamless experience in any context, business or leisure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you're right, because it's actually the negative situations are the ones that are hardest to deal with. And I had an experience with an airline last week where the plane was cancelled because it didn't leave the city of departure, and so we were left stranded, and the airline was terrible because he has a 200 odd guests or travelers all wandering around at close to midnight, wondering where I'm going to stay, when am I going to leave Oslo,
Yeah.
as it was. Um, so had the plane arrived on time or even just slightly delayed, they probably would have been able to handle that situation better than the whole flight being cancelled. Um, it was, probably something that doesn't happen that often. It happens, which surprised me how badly they handled that situation. But yeah, it left a very bitter taste in everyone's mouth.
Yeah.
And they could have turned that into a very positive experience had they had procedures in place to handle that seamlessly and efficiently.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right about it's those hiccups that stay in the customer's mind. And I think, I'll beg to, well, I'll dare to argue that, they'll take more time to write a negative review than to write a positive review.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, like definitely, yeah, very important to have that. And I think even, because disruptions can happen, but even just that communication, like I think the last like disruption I had on a flight, it was just really the communication was, I found out by chance because I was putting my flight number into the
Yes.
website. So I was able to see like what the disruptions were, but there were customers that didn't know. And
Yeah.
the flight was taking off. Oh, we're refueling in a city that's in the opposite direction by 1 hour. And people were not happy.
No, no.
Yeah. At that point, I was laughing because I was like, yeah, I already know this. I've seen
Uh,
the future, but it was a lot of hard work on my part to have to get those
yeah,
answers.
and it shouldn't be. That information should be made available in a timely and convenient way. So yeah.
Definitely. Well, on that note, let's let's hope that the industry that we keep striving towards this very seamless experience for customers. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's our bread and butter, so should be a priority. But yeah, thank you very much, Michael, for joining us today. It was really great to have you, and yeah, I understand a little bit better now about these revenue management systems. I don't know, these very technical topics sometimes go a bit over my head.
No.
So thank you for putting it in very simple terms, and I'm sure our audience will learn a lot as well. So thank you very much for that, and thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.